Happy Wednesday, everybody. Let's jump right into it with our critiques. Okay, so I'm going to go through these alphabetically. As you can see, all of your names are listed up here at the top, so you can kind of track the progress as to where you're coming up in the list. Starting off with Aaron. So this is very, very close. I think that this is looking really well. Again, I think we should work on getting a little bit more dark value in between the car and the person, just to create. It'll just make these areas feel a little bit brighter if there's a little bit of a crevice of darkness in there. There's some sharp shadows right up here. I'm guessing it's from this light, but I would just kind of soften those. And then additionally, I really like the way that this light here is being hit on this tree. It's kind of softer, it's broader. But over here on the screen left side, because of the glass, it's much tighter on these green hits. If there's any way to soften that and just kind of broaden those out a little bit, I think that would help, because they're a little distracting up there. And by softening and broadening them, they'll go like this, where they help tell the story without drawing too much attention. And then lastly, I would focus these lights so that they're shining outward. There's a little bit too much spill on the rest of the car. And I would just keep the car darker and then allow those to kind of spill out this way. Last thing for this one is that you have, anybody who's rendering at this angle, at this size, make sure you're giving your render a good big resolution, because there's a lot of small shapes, like all the little details up in here and coming across here, all the little rivets in there. You just want to make sure that you're not losing anything at a small pixel. So just make sure when you do the final render that you do at least 1920 by 1920 by 1080 or whatever. You can even go bigger than that, because it's a still, whatever your computer can handle in a render in a reasonable amount of time. But don't shortchange on the resolution on these if you're going to be pulled back a little bit. All right, Ashley. Cool stuff. Very, very close. I think that all the progress you're making is working really well. The last couple things I would do is I was looking at her, a couple things. I was looking at her eyeding here, and it's a little broad and a little soft. I would just tighten that up just a little bit. Like his looks pretty good there. Maybe soften his a little more, just like dial up the difference between those two. And I think that you will be in good shape. And then lastly, I did these two things to him because I was looking at him and just kind of wishing there was just a touch more value on the fill side of his face. So I just kind of did that. A/B that a little bit more so you can see that. And then his hair is a little bit bright and a little bit saturated. So I just took that down a touch too. So without those changes, with those changes. Again, super subtle, but I think they really help kind of narrow it in. So I think that's the way to go. And then if you can, I would, just for the sake of getting attention, just desaturate their reflections just a touch more. Grayson, cool stuff. One thing, once we pull off some of this atmosphere in the foreground, it's a little bit dry. So I think we need to kind of balance the difference. I love the God rays back behind this. I would keep that for now, but just bring in a little bit more of that fog, because now we're seeing like more detail on this rock, and it just looks like a noise pattern. It's kind of breaking down. Same thing with the ground, and like this bright patch area is a little bit bright. I'm totally fine with it getting that bright around the main character, but outside of that, it's just like it's just flattening out. And then this car here, the windows feel odd to me, like they should be darker and more reflective, not like I'm not quite sure. I guess that's picking up the atmosphere color, but it feels more purple than that. So I would just make those a lot darker, especially that one back there too. But yeah, I think that's where I would go with this one. I see where you want to head with this, but I think we just need to kind of balance out the difference. And then you can also feel free to try a version without these lights on, because I think just having the red and the blue may be enough to really tell the story that we're looking for. So Jordan, you brought this image to my attention as a possible reference. You said you really liked you were responding to the crispness of it. And what that crispness is just like basically good contrast and lots of value. So we've got the nice bright whites, the lighters in here, and then the nice dark value. So like a full value range. I kind of said offhandedly that there are some issues with this image. And And Jordan just asked for me to elaborate a little more. And there are a few things. Number one was just like these dark patches in the street. Like, I'm not sure if, like, I think they're just supposed to be like wet and dry areas, but they're just not reading as that to me. It just feels splotchy. Also, like, this amount of haze is just kind of haze for haze sake, and it's really close to the camera. Like, it's in front of this pipe. So like this is very lifted dark values, while what we're seeing like back over there, you know, a full block away is much darker. The shards of things down here on the ground are, I think they're cardboard boxes, but they don't look like cardboard. They almost look metallic. And then like the position of the firework over top of this building is kind of throwing me off a little bit. And it's really just like, and the bigger one to me is just like the hierarchical structure of the dark points in this image don't really make sense. Like I was talking about this haze here. So like, you know, usually you want your image to be like darkest near the foreground and kind of step back into space. It gives a viewer a real sense of depth and a real understanding of this space, where this one's kind of breaking that down a little bit. And then there's like, you know, fireworks over top of balloons and stuff. That's kind of breaking that. Like, I'm not getting a good sense of how far deep everything is in this space. So that's like my little critique of this one. Again, I don't, you know, as I said to Jordan, like I don't like to critique people's work that didn't ask for it, but that's, you know, just as an artist kind of going through something. There are a lot of really beautiful elements to this image. Like another one too is the way like these headlights, I mean, I guess they're here, but like then there's this light here, but like I'm just not seeing the headlights on the ground, right? Like the headlights just aren't doing their job really. Maybe it's just an old car, but that would be my breakdown on this image. Kat, great stuff, making lots of progress. I love it. These look a lot better, and they're not quite as distracting, but I was just realizing they're a little, like they're not reading as dashboard lights. They're reading as just kind of like reflections or something. And I think that's fine because it is out of focus here. So I would just to kind of communicate the space a little more, make them a little bit broader, and don't allow the bright point to get as bright as that. Like this has got, you don't see how this is like a nice broad roll off. Just keep that here, like it's hitting the dashboard, and then maybe just add like a little bump map in there or something just to kind of break it up. But I think what you're trying to do is smart. I just think it's a little bit, it's just a little tight and a little distracting. Blur up the edge of, like, do you see how there's like a haze over top of it, but I still see this crisp edge? We don't want to see that crisp edge. Then it just kind of feels like haze. I think she's looking great. I think she's spot on. But I do want to see a little bit more moisture in the air. So I went ahead and just tried adding this in just to get a little bit of that. So I think doing another round of atmospherics, and if you want to see how I did that, I literally just took the whole thing, copied and pasted it on top, added a Gaussian blur, and then took that layer and screened it over the top, you know, which would be like a screen, or which is the same, you know, we talk about in the compositing class. It's the same as adding the images together, and then just taking it down in some of these brighter and some of the darker values, so isolated to the highlights, and then take down the overall contribution to something like that. So now you can kind of see what that is. All right, Keven, you are up next. So I think this is looking really great overall. Like I said, I wouldn't mess too much with what's going on the screen left side. It's weird that that's getting hit by a little bit of that magenta light. Not quite sure what that is. But for the character here, I do think that we should fill him in just a little bit more. And also, go ahead and soften up the shadow on him. Like basically, we just want to kind of beauty light him up a little bit. And then I would darken the sky as you go down back here, and just kind of like allow this ground area to get a little bit darker. So you can just kind of fade it off there. And then watch out if there's any way. Do you see like this, like it's very contrasty in the ground here? If there's any way to minimize that, I would do that. And then I would kill just to make that dark there. But otherwise, I think this one's looking really, really well. Kyra, so I saw you submitted these to the final submission one, so if you don't have time to hit notes, totally fine. I would just add a little bit more, like a core light bulb in these to brighten those up, and then those on the screen right side a little brighter. Again, these windows just want to go bright, but make those a little bit darker and with a little bit of reflection in them if you can. And I want to see less of this screen left area. I think this is really pretty, this fall off here. So maybe keep that. I just like this stuff back there, I kind of want to lose that a little bit more just so we can focus in more on the inside here. That looks really good. I like that you can see a little bit inside the house. And the rest of it's looking really well. And on this close-up, I think this is looking great. The only thing that I would do is get a little bit of the touch of green. You've got it over here a little bit, but just like wrap it around a little bit. Like I can buy that there's not that much green on his screen left side of his face, but I can't totally get behind that being like that. And then if there's any way to throw a little bit of depth of field on these foreground elements, that would be great too. Because like the way this is setting up, this feels like a kind of a long telephoto lens. And when you have that, you get a more shallow depth of field. So I think that we can, and even possibly the doorway too, just like a touch of blur on those things. Give it a try, see if you like it. And like I said, since you added these to the final submission, if you don't have time, that's totally fine too. Really great work on these. All right, Michael, welcome. All right, so we've got some really beautiful color palettes that I just like. So when I first started working in the industry, I made these just to get a better understanding of the colors of lights that people were using and things. Let me make these a little smaller. And it really, really helped me understand like color balance and color schemes and all that. Like to get an understanding of like this full, not only color range, but value range in an image. Like you have to have these brights with these darks and just like the saturation points in between. Really, really helps you get a better feel of the type of light that you want to create. More not so much the light, but it's the resulting objects being lit by that light. Like, you know, this contrasting element of these warms versus these cools. Like that's all what this is about, right? This is from what is the name of this movie? I love this movie. I forget. Emma Stone, you've got me again. The Competitor. The other one, no, what the heck is the name of it? I forget the name of it. That's gonna kill me. But for these, like this is more monochromatic. Like there's these windows, but everything else is kind of this purple blue range. But like look at the difference in those values just in that. Like you can really get a lot out of these images. So I would highly recommend looking at these on the Color Palette Cinema, or creating them yourself too. It's a fun experiment to create those yourself. You can find a bunch of these on Pinterest too. But yeah, great study. Thank you so much for posting these. All right, Nigel. So this is your updated versus the Nigel. Apparently I spelled previous with an F now. It's your preferences. I think this is looking really good. We lost some of the this is tricky because we have that haze now, but lost some of the red on the character. Blech. A touch more red on him. Get a little bit more of that saturation. I still think you can kill that a little more. And then, yeah, I think the eyes look better. Yeah, I think the eyes look a little bit more set into place there. I think that looks good. But yeah, that's just about it. Just his face. The tentacles all look good. Just like a touch more of that redness back in on his face. Like pretty much right in this region here is where I want to pull it back. Right in here. Yeah. Okay, but really good job there. This for your versus your previous. That looks a lot better. Same thing over here looks a lot better. Everything's, oh man, the side of that car looks a lot better too. I love that you're getting these like reflections in there, and this is the kind of dark value we want to see out of these windows. I love that you can get just like the trim of the inside of the car. Yeah, I think this is looking really good. I would say go ahead and render. Yeah, if you haven't already rendered this one as final render, I think this is good to go. But yeah, I would be happy with this one. And then this one, this is the newer one. This is the previous one. I still think we can get a little more of the haze in here. Just like a little bit of the fog just kind of rolling around here a little bit. Color of the windows is better. Let's compare it to the outside one. Yeah, much better. If you could, like if there's any way to get like a little shadow in there, that would be really helpful. And then, yeah, I would just say haze and a little bit of shadow in there, and I think you're well on your way. All right, welcome, Pawel. I believe that's how I pronounce it. If I mispronounce your name, I apologize. So a very cool reference here. So the one thing I was looking at with this reference, there were a couple things. Notice how there's a bit of warmth right there in the wall from these curtains. Also notice that we've got the, window shape here, but like look at the secondary light kind of bouncing around, how it's darker in here, then gets brighter there, and then fades off as we go that way. I think that would be something really, really cool to simulate. So like darker right in here, brighter there, and maybe extend that out to like here, and then fade it as you go off that way. A little more exaggeration on that would be really, really good. The other thing that I noticed was, wrong way, was this like bright hits on the ground, and it would be really cool if like that got a little bit brighter as well. But overall, you've got a really nice soft feel to everything. Like the depth of field feels the right scale, which is very tricky early on. But I think that's looking really good. And then I was also looking underneath the bed at these shadows. It's kind of elongated, soft, not super dense. And I think that you like you can soften the shadow a little bit. But yeah, like that density under there is looking about right. So I would just try and hit those and then go on from there. And then also, like if you can, lift that dark value there. Just because it's the most contrasty thing in the image. Like if you wanted the interior of the guitar to go that dark, that's fine. But like the cash register read thing shouldn't, like that's not the main. That doesn't seem like the main focus on this. Oh, and by the way, great job getting vertical shaping on this. Do you see how there's like the neck of the guitar is a little darker, and it's a flat surface, so that's tricky, but really good job there. Perle, great job with the eyes. Just I would run an ambient occlusion pass just to get a little set in the eyes there. But really, really beautiful job overall. Like you've got the shaping, you've got the ding. And I would just take down that reflection a little bit too. It's a little bright, getting a little bit more shadow in there. And then I would call this one done. You did a really brilliant job with that. The eye, believe me, because I lit that one as well. The eyes on him are not that easy to hit. This one's looking great. I just think that in the mid ground, like we've got good darks here, everything, and I just think that we could get a little bit more darkness in some of those mid ground values. Just a touch more. Like I love the haze, the overall haze and everything that you're getting here, but like just a little bit more on that I think would really, really do wonders. So something along those lines. But that's pretty much it. I mean, you guys have been killing it with this assignment. I can't get over it. And then this one, this is a really dumb note, but try and warm up her gums a little bit. Do you see how it's like dark up there, and just like the way the teeth connect to that feels a little bit like a puppet or not real, and just adding that little bit of warmth would help. Looking at her face, I wonder if I can't. Let me see something. Just try and brighten that up just a little bit more, add a little bit more contrast in there, and I want to just keep pulling out the blues a little bit more. Something along those lines. See how that works out. There's just like a touch more warmth in that. Try just getting like sneaking a little bit more warmth into those. I think the lines look better. I think her shoes look a lot better. I would just do that. And then if you want to, you could also try brightening this like up at the top, the like top of that light source a little bit, just so it feels a little bit more like she's looking into that light, and then fade it off as we go down. You know, something like that. I think that could help too. But really, like, this is looking really great. Oh, last one. Just saw this as I was skimming across. If you could decrease the saturation, just like right there in that shadow would be really good too. Sylvain, very cool stuff. Let's take a look at your reference here. This is really nice. Love the color scheme. I just watched Coco. Working out really well there. Yeah, love this color scheme. This kind of magenta and oranges are a nice combination that I wouldn't expect. So the way that they're combining here is like these almost take like see how they're like softer, hazier, glowier, but these have like tighter shapes to them. I wonder if we can't hit the same thing where like we take down the bright points on the candles and just allow those to haze up a little bit, and then allow the sharp shapes of these magentas to really pop forward. I think too that maybe you wrote this, but I think that we can add a lot more of this haze in, because I think you can pump that into the scene a lot more. And then in terms of, I don't know if it's important, and you can tell me this, if it's important whether or not we see the car here, because like I lose it just kind of gets lost in the silhouette of the trees and everything. So I'm wondering if like there's a connection there, or if it's just all about what's going on over here in this character. And in this shot, more so than just the fog, could just really use some of that Gaussian goodness on top. You know, like something along these lines. Just to really kind of like, it's just nighttime, man. There's a lot of moisture in the air. There's a lot of softening going on. But I love your sky. I love the depth. Like, this is what I was talking about in that reference. Like, look at the depth range here as we step back into space. Perfect. You know, you can see the darker values as we get closer and closer to the foreground. They like these trees step back into space beautifully. Like a lot of good shaping in here. It's just a really beautiful stuff. And then, the last thing is determining whether or not this light is the edge light on the character is coming from her. Like, is she causing it, or is it from the light inside? Because if it's from the light inside, I would just make it a little brighter back behind her there. If not, then I would make what's hitting the wall be slightly brighter too. All right, so last up, I think it's last up. Yeah, we have Tyler. So we have 3 images here from Tyler. So biggest thing, a couple things that stand out to me the most is a level of the green saturation back behind the character is super bright. I would tone that way down. You know, similar to like looking at Ashley's. Do you see how like by being desaturated and toned down, they kind of fall back into space? Whereas if they jump forward like this, when we make them very saturated and very bright. A couple other things. Let's start with this one. Very bright eyes. Let's tone those down. The back of his shirt, like this texture feels almost like corduroy, which is a little odd. And then their brights are getting super bright. And at this point, we kind of have there's. I think during the daytime you wouldn't need these lights. So I would almost keep these dark and then just make it all about the daylight scene. Watch out. There's like a weird light shape there, so I'd watch out for that. And then as lights, so we've got light coming in here. This texture on this wall is very odd. I'm not quite sure what that is, but like it feels like bumpy, but it's not bump. I would almost just make that like a simple painted wall to give yourself a little bit of a break. And then similar to what we were just seeing in Pawel's, but like this type of fall off as we're coming across the room, like some darkness right near the window, although you may not have that as much because there's a closer connection. Yeah, it would just be like dark there, like pretty much what you have, but make this brighter and then fading off as we go that way. And then like looking at this, so this is super bright on the screen left side,
and you want to create more fall off there because it's almost like a hard line between where there's key light and where there isn't. His screen right eye we don't really get any kind of shadow in here, so it's just kind of glowy and floaty. And then just like there's just too much fill on him here, so because we really want this to wrap around. Like, you see how bright this is? And then watch out, there's a weird hard edge there, and his ears now looking a little bit red. Okay. And then we may need, like, I was seeing this too from Ashley's, like, we may need to increase the value of this tabletop because, like, if his hand's getting that much light, like, we'd be seeing a lot more there. And then same thing with her hair's looking a little bit green, her skin's looking a little bit too orange, so try and balance those out. And for the final image, yeah, the shadows on these cups are very odd to me because they should be, like, big and long and soft this way. But for some reason they're directly under it, which implies there's light coming directly from overhead. Yeah, and then for her, like, her lips are saturated, her eyes are they look nice, but the blue's a little bit too much. And then we're kind of just missing shadow down here too. So, oh, and then outside, I guess that's reflection of the inside. I'm seeing a lot of, like, sharp shapes in there. It's very, and just be on the lookout for that. So this is what I would do if I was you. I would take another stab at this. And the biggest thing that I would do two things. Number one, I would try lighting the outside if you're doing a daylight with just two lights. Just like one spotlight shining down to simulate the sunlight. So just like one spotlight coming in this way or something. And then an overall dome light, right? So let's start with that. And then for the interior, I would just do one single, either, if you're an Arnold, either portal light or area light that is kind of the shape of this big window, just shining in, just to see what we get. You can make it smaller if that looks terrible, but, like, let's just try it with those three lights and see where that gets us. All right, that is it for today. If you all have any questions, please let me know, and I look forward to seeing what you got tomorrow. All right, talk to you later, everybody.